So here we are. Good morning, gentlemen. I have 11 o'clock. And of course, on Marine time, that means we have started. And welcome to the 17 Club Men's Mastermind. And our purpose, building disciplined men of purpose who take responsibility, act with intention, and serve others. This is where we study the science of personal achievement and to support, encourage, and hold each other accountable on their journey toward their personal or professional definite chief aim. So once again, welcome, my friends. And for those of you who are watching the replay, welcome. I hope you get something valuable out of today's session. As always, we like to start out with an experience. So who would like to share an experience that they enjoyed over the past week, or maybe they didn't enjoy and would just like to share an experience to get other members in the group to give their view or their observation? While I let more people in the room, go ahead and get started. Anyone?
Well, I can't start. I went to South America. I went to Colombia for this weekend for a karate tournament, and we had a wonderful results for Team Mexico, and opened up my great bigger network. So for my competition, I'm gonna host a tournament, an international event in Mexico City in October. So this brought me really good connections with people from different countries down there. They're planning on going. So that's a win for me.
Nice,
Huge one.
nice. Good for you. And that you've been putting a lot of hard work into that too, Luis, huh?
Yes, a lot of
Yes.
time for sure.
A lot of time for sure. Yeah. Great. Congratulations. Anyone
Thank you.
else? Anyone else? Well, while you're thinking about it, I've got something to share. Most of you know by now that I listen to a lot of podcasts throughout my walks every day. And this past weekend, I enjoyed an interview from one of my coaches, my real estate coach, Brian Buffini, who's based out of Carlsbad, California. And he was having an interview with Hal Elrod. Those of you who don't know who Hal is, he wrote The Miracle Morning, which was pretty much seemed to be pretty much a fad, maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago. But Hal got into a really bad car accident when he was 20 years old, and in fact, he was pronounced dead at the scene. And through some miracle, he was able to survive. He was revived, and he used that as a platform to help people change the way they start their day. And it really struck with me. And I know Luis and Rob, I know you guys have been in Albert, you've been part of the Napoleon Hills, self-discipline camp. But Elrod gives us an acronym called SAVERS. SAVERS, SAVERS. And SAVERS stands for a way that a process or routine recommended to start your morning. The first S stands for silence. And with that, Hal talks about silence being meditation, being prayer, or just completely silence to start your day off with reflection and thought. And the A stands for affirmations, so positive self-talk. So these things fall right in line with what we practice as part of Napoleon Hill's teachings. The V stands for visualization, seeing it as you expect it to be. So when you've got a goal, you're visioning what it looks like 5 years down the road, not what it's going to look like just today as you're working towards it. The second E stands for exercise, and many of us before some of you came in the room, we were all talking about exercising and physical fitness, and we all know the value of that. And Hal says, we need to make that part of our day each and every day. The R stands for reading. Uh, we should be well read. And as we get into our topic today of creative vision and imagination, it says it right in that chapter that we should be well read. And then the S stands for scribing. And of course, in our world, we call that journaling. So the acronym SAVERS, if you'd all write that down and see how can you implement that into your day. SAVERS. Silence, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing. I've made it a commitment this week to make that an active part of my day every day, whatever that looks like. With our self-discipline camp with Napoleon Hill, we would show up at 5:30 in the morning and everybody met 5:30 to 6:30. Well, frankly, Hal doesn't care what time you start your day, but just start it following those procedures each and every day. And if you're able to, and I am able to work it all into that first hour of the day, what a great way to begin your day. Right? And of course, it takes me more than an hour because my walk alone takes me almost an hour and 15 minutes. So, and can you combine it? Can you stack it? So I do habit stacking a lot of times. So my reading might be audible, it might be a podcast. I always try to read at least 4 or 5 pages a day before I get my day started, but just find a way to fit it all in. And at the end of the day, when you go back to your journal, just check off, did I spend some time in silence today? There goes that thumb. I love it when my computer screen reads me, right? Did you do all of the SAVERS acronym? So I just wanted to share that with you. It's oftentimes, as a matter of fact, I ordered the newest edition of the book so I could go back to it and read it again. And I think doing that and focusing on those things that we've learned, probably read somewhere along the line, and now we should be teaching it. I heard yesterday, there's 3 ways to learn. I've heard this before. You read, you do, right? A lot of us learn by reading. All of us learn by doing. It's called experience. And we learn the best by teaching. It's the best way to become a master is by teaching others, right? So, we talk about the purpose of the 17 Club. And, from my perspective, this club is more than just a weekly meeting. This group, we're men who are focused on being the best we can be. And from my perspective, the way we become the best that we can be is to help other people become the best that they can be, right? And that's by teaching. Lead by experience. Marine Corps always taught me, lead by example. Right, Rob? Lead by example. That's a military, pillar that we all follow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard one of my podcast interviews this morning said, my kids don't listen to me because they're too busy watching me, right? So think about it. Are you leading by example? I know as a coach, I always ask people, are you living the principles? If you're living the principles, people will notice, right? Anyone else have an experience you'd like to share before we move on to today's lesson?
Maybe just to add what you just said, Frank,
Right, Rob.
there's also another acronym that I've really used in my civilian life when it comes to management, and it's helped a lot, with how people react to me and my management style, because I really had to hone that coming out of the military. It's no more leadership, dress right, dress, follow orders. It's finesse. And so being able to not only lead by example, but I think you've heard the acronym, Frank, be, know, do.
Hmm.
Be the leader you can be, know how to be a leader, and then do is kind of the lead by example. So, just always kind of knowing, your posture as far as leadership and what it looks like to those you're leading or those you're managing or those you're mentoring. I found that to go a long way, especially as a civilian, as a military guy coming in. My portfolio was nowhere as strong as my peers to the left and right of me that have been doing this for 20, 30 years. I maybe had 5 years under my belt once I really reached the executive level. But my man, I had my peers who had more time in the civilian sector saying, "Rob, what am I doing wrong?" And I would tell them, I'd be like, "Look, I saw you do this, and I don't think it really settled right with the group you were talking to." So it's something I was able to pass on and not only mentor and empower people I was managing, but also mentor my peers in a way and help them because they're not trained to be managers. A lot of guys, they kind of just get dropped into that position because somebody quit, retired, or whatnot.
Yeah.
So they're not groomed like that we are in the military to get to that position to where you are a leader of many men and many women in many different scenarios. So it's kind of unfair to them to sometimes they're not even knowing they don't know what empathy is. They don't know what all these things are. They're important when you're dealing with human beings. They just see it their way and they try to just bolt that on. That might work in the military, but it doesn't work in the civilian sector. It's very diverse.
I'm not sure it worked very well in the military. Some of the examples I've seen as a result, right? But yeah, thank you so much for that, Rob. And I think for us, at least I know the core group of this 17 club when we got started, the reality was that we're looking at men in our communities that are not living up to that leadership standard. And it's because they were never shown how to live up to that leadership standard. Some were fortunate enough to get into sports and athletics, and that kind of set a platform for them. But so many of our society as a whole, not just men, but I look at men as being in a leadership role. And it's up to us to set the example. It's up to us to help somebody who's in need of assistance. And so, by being in this group and learning the foundational principles of what every good human being should be doing, living the golden rule, whatever it is you want to call it, and setting that example, but not only setting the example, but teaching by that example and helping people be the best that they can be, specifically in this case, men. Anyone else? Anyone else had anything to add? Dan, good to see you here, my friend.
Yeah,
Glad
I
to see
hate
you.
being recorded. I
Yep.
really, really don't like being recorded, but I will share an experience. So I am convinced that I convinced myself I had ADHD, and as a result, I was on ADHD medication for way too long. And so for the past maybe 5 days, I'm medication free, and it feels great. So
Good
there's
for
my
you, Dan.
experience.
Excellent. Good for you. And Danielle, I just want to share with you. Thank you for sharing that. And we are recording, and there's a reason why we're recording. It's so that those who are not able to meet the 11 o'clock time frame can come back and listen to the replay. But it's also a place where we can do what you just did. You just shared authentically something that you probably wouldn't. You don't feel comfortable sharing that, right? Because it's personal stuff. But you know
So
what?
to be honest, I really don't have a filter, but I'm learning to be more cognizant of being recorded because it's a huge, ginormous liability in
I hear
life.
you. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. And Albert's up there laughing too. He's, at the end of the day, we're trying to serve as many people as we possibly can. And so
Well, I
far,
brought Dan to this community, so he knows the benefits.
I,
Yeah.
I know you did bring Dan to the community, and that's why I mentioned your name. So,
Thank you,
anyone
Albert.
else? Michael, you got anything to share with us this morning?
Well, oh,
it's been a really wacky last 5, 6 days. So lots of hockey and sick kids, and this was just one of those periods of time where life was just packed and busy. So,
I
Alex's
can,
final
I
hockey
can, I can,
tournament.
I can see the difference in your energy this morning.
Oh, really? Yeah, and it was my wife's birthday yesterday, so it's just been a wild
Crazy.
ride the last 4 or 5 days of kids and all sorts of stuff. So no, it's been good though, man. Like it's been good.
Good, good, excellent. Yes, Luis, I saw your hand go up.
Yes, but that's amazing because this is exactly one of the principles, persistence, right? Even when things are not going right, when things are kind of like going, just we show up, and we get the job done. And sometimes it's not entertaining. Sometimes we're dealing with that, right? Yesterday, I couldn't join the mastermind because my stepdaughter is pregnant and she started having contractions and she's only 29 weeks. So it was a little bit scary in the beginning, but then everything is fine. She's gonna stay there until tomorrow. But my wife works at the same hospital, so everything is kind of under control.
Yeah.
But yeah, those things that, happened, but we still show up. That's the persistence. And that's why we build. So when things like that happened, we're ready for it. That's
Yeah.
exactly why we build and grind every single day. So when things get out of hand, we respond, we don't react, right? So that's the thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
kudos, Michael, because I guess we all go through that at one point.
Yeah, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that, Luis. Zachary is he's off the camera right now because he's driving, but he came on early and we were having a conversation, and he talked about what you just talked about, Luis. You know, his week has not gone perfectly. Everything didn't fall into place the way he necessarily planned it, but he kept showing up and he kept taking action. And right, and that's we grow up in a society that expects perfection. If you're going to do it right. And by the way, everything has to, well, at least I grew up that way. I mean, it's my dad was a disciplinarian. Of course, then I went into the military and there were things that were expected of you, and that's just the way it was supposed to be. But, real life isn't always like that. Real life, sometimes you can only do one of the 10 things that you said you were going to do today. And then you're down on yourself because you only did one out of the 10 things that you were supposed to do today. How about just being happy that you got one of the 10 things done and tomorrow you only got nine left to go? Right? Because life wasn't perfect. It didn't work out the way that you planned it. It almost never does. But just keep showing up. Keep doing what you need to be doing. All right. Anyone else? Let me let Edward in. All right. Ed is
I was
coming
just
in.
going to mention,
Yeah,
Frank,
Mike.
too, that regardless of all of that stuff, I think one of the reasons you guys started off talking about leadership this morning and how ultimately that is a critical piece of what we're all building. And I think not enough people step up to be leaders in a variety of places in their lives. And so when shit hits the fan or when you get a really busy time period, right? You're investing in something else other than building your business or other than making a dollar today or other than something, right? You're investing in the lives around you, the relationships you've got, in some time for yourself, whatever it is. But the fact is that in life we should build resources and build assets that reward us over and over and over again for building it the one time and leading it correctly, right? I do not believe in passive income. I believe in led income from that perspective. And you build something well, and then ultimately you lead it afterwards. So other people can do the job, right? Military guys in here, you do not win a battle by yourself, right? So there is you have to in your life build things that are sustaining what you want after you're getting off the bike and you stop pedaling or you stop doing all of the heavy lifting of it all and you build a system, you build an asset that you lead afterwards. And so, regardless of how haywire my sort of Thursday through Monday was, and it was awesome. It was just busy of all sorts of other stuff. Regardless of any of those things, businesses still operated for me. Lots of money was still made. Lots of people still made happy. Lots of clients served because, you build something that does what it's supposed to do, even if you're not there doing all of the heavy pushing.
Yeah, yeah. What a great perspective, Michael. I love, leading money. You're leading your entire life. I mean, you're leading in your life. You're leading outside your life. You're setting examples for other people. And
Mhm.
for many of us, we're going beyond that. We're even making an opportunity to teach and to train other people to follow the same process. And that's when I look at least my perspective. Now, don't get me wrong. There are lots of really good young men out there. I'm the guy that sits at I remember sitting at oh one of the local breakfast restaurants, and there was another table sitting right next to us. So it was me and three guys, and then there was four other guys, older guys, sitting at the table to the right of me, and their entire conversation that morning was how horrible today's generation is. And I actually had flashbacks because, I'm a child of the 70s and they were saying the same thing about that generation, right? And and I couldn't resist it. After about 15 minutes, I I think one of the guys saw me listening in a little bit and he said, "Well, what are your thoughts?" And I said, "If I'm going to be honest with you, I think there are a lot of great young men and women out there right now today doing a wonderful job." I said, "It's a shame that you focus on the negative versus the positive because there's so many good kids out there." And I that's just the way I perceive life. It's the way I look at life. And I think it's important for us to be in this room and to take out of this room lessons that we can share with someone else. And so one of my thoughts as I was preparing for today, because I'm going to be leading the today's lesson on creative vision and imagination. One of the things that I was thinking about is we have so much material and knowledge in these books that we're studying. And I'm holding this book up in particular because this is the journal and action guide. This is the full book. And so when I look at the journal and action guide, and I'm raising my hand, guilty as charged. Are you doing the work? Are you applying the lesson each week? So you read a chapter, then you go into this book. Maybe the next day you've had a chance to kind of sizzle on it a little bit, and you go in here and answer the journaling questions in the book. I challenge all of you, to do that because that's where what we study and talk about here gets implanted more intentionally into our subconscious. Go ahead, Luis.
But that's when the real growth comes, when we do that work right there, not in this session. The sessions are like we open up our eyes, more perspectives, more point of views come, experiences, maybe even motivation from someone, right, that is doing the work or something great happened or breakthroughs and all that. But they're just like Michael said earlier, all this going on, all these things are going on, but we're still showing up. That's when the real work happens.
Yeah,
The real work happens like for you when you said earlier, I'm doing my morning walk and I'm listening and I'm writing and that's when the work, that's the little the glass gets full with those drops, not only in the sessions. The sessions are, to me, is when it magnifies, when we see everything. But the real work is the other 6 days. Even today,
yeah,
right? We have to do the work outside of this time window.
yeah,
So absolutely, I 100% agree with that. And most of us expect, because we were programmed to get motivated to do shit. It's not. The real work, the real growth comes when we're not motivated. Who here feels that the greatest sessions or one of the greatest sessions that you ever had at the gym is when you didn't want to go and do that workout or you didn't want to go and
yep,
run or to go for that run, right?
yep,
So it's that. Yes, when we overcome those every day showing up.
yeah. It's easy to do stuff when you're motivated. It's more important to do stuff when you're not motivated, right? Because that's where you can really make the progress that you want to make because you're doing something even though you don't necessarily feel like doing it. Um, I think was it Zig Ziglar or somebody said, yeah, motivation has to be done daily. And that's why I listen. That's why I listen to podcasts and interviews and read, because that builds my motivation. Today will be a great day for me as it is every Tuesday because of this group meeting. And so that's motivation, but you got to do it daily. It's kind of like bathing, right? You got to do it daily. And that's what Zig said, it doesn't last. Motivation is temporary. I literally just listened to a podcast this morning that was talking about that fact. Motivation is nothing but that. It's a draining emotion. It goes away. And it's more important to show up when you're not motivated, when you don't want to do it. So let's talk a little bit about the principle that we were studying this past week, creative vision and imagination. So in the book, it describes creative vision as the ability to see possibilities before they become reality, right? So all thoughts begin in the mind. So being able to see possibilities before they become reality. And all achievement begins as a thought image in the mind. Napoleon's teaching talks about thoughts are things. And when we have thoughts, we need to realize those thoughts are things. And how often do you have a thought and then you forget the thought? I know it happens to me all the time. Happened to me yesterday. I had to write down on my note paper the acronym PITCH, Pitch, because I heard it in an interview in my personal mastermind yesterday afternoon. I was reminded of it. So I wrote it down on my notepad so that later on today, I'll go back and listen to that podcast again so I remember what pitch stands for. Because right now, the only one I can remember is the P, which is what's the problem. And what the gentleman was describing was the way that people sell, the late night TV where they sell you like Ginzu knives and all that kind of. So there's a science to that process, and pitch is the science. And I got when I next week when I come to the show, I'll let you know what all of the five letters in pitch stand for. But it begins with identifying the problem, which of course applies for all of us. Can't fix it if we don't identify the problem. Imagination is the workshop of the mind. Imagination is the mental workshop where ideas are formed, plans are created, and success is first deployed. Imagination. The largest nation in the world is your imagination. In the acronym SAVERS, when I talked about silence, the book actually describes it. We should spend at least 1 hour a day, in thought, just thinking. How many people spend an hour a day just thinking? Daniel, congratulations. Phil, congratulations. I mean, that's important stuff because life is so busy, so fast that if we don't take that time to kick back and think, it is difficult for us to identify the actions that we need to take.
It's
And
hard for men to sit alone by themselves and think. It's a very
yeah,
difficult thing. That's why we
a-
stay busy to distract ourselves.
absolutely, Daniel, you're spot on. Absolutely, it's difficult for us to do that. And even when I try to do it myself, I mean, within 10 or 15 minutes, I'm getting restless, right? I need to be doing something. Why am I sitting here thinking? What am I thinking about? But it becomes a practice. And frankly, I mean, like someone like Leroy, who spends a lot of time driving down the road, got all kinds of time to think, right? Take advantage of that time.
A lot of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just take advantage of the time. I forget who it was that said it, but make your car your university. I think it was Zig Ziglar again. It's an automotive university. Put good stuff. For him, it used to be putting cassette tapes in, and then it got into became CDs, and now we can listen to a podcast anytime we want to. Why not take advantage of that to pour that information into your mind? Because it's that information that's going to fuel your imagination, right? So challenge each one of you. Practice, start out by practicing maybe 10 minutes a day in nothing but complete silence and thought. Yes, Michael, go ahead.
So I wanted to say that I love the idea of turning my car into a university, but I don't know about anybody else, but I have felt many times throughout my life that I'm actually putting too much in. And what you just said there, Frank, right? I think we need to unpack that for just a quick sec because there are plenty of times where we actually need the silence more than we need the voice. And here's the thing, on a lot of levels, because of our education system, and a lot of us have had this conversation and everything else, we're taught that we don't have the answer. Someone else has the answer. And frankly, guys, I don't think that's often true. I think if we got quiet enough to actually listen to the inner voice that Napoleon Hill and many others have all spoken about, we can call it God, we can call it divine inspiration, we can call it universal energy, we can call it your imagination. You have the damn answer. And as Daniel put it, we don't want to sit quietly. It's uncomfortable. So we turn on the podcast. Frank listens to his audio stuff. What would happen if he walked in silence for an hour and 15 minutes? What else could come up, right? If Leroy's listening to a lot of stuff while he's driving, what if there was nothing but the sound of the tires on the road for 2 hours? what would come up, you know? There's many times, and you know what I find myself doing? I'll talk, right? I'll fill the silence with my own damn voice, and I'll have to be like, good Lord, you idiot, shut up. My goodness. Please stop talking to yourself.
Yeah.
I'm sure people driving beside me are like, this guy's having one heck of a conversation. Let's hope there's someone on the phone, because otherwise, you know. But I think we don't, at least for me, I have found so many times in my life, my best answer is just to stay quiet and wait for it to show up because it's right there. Nobody else holds the keys to what you want. You've got it, right? And so as Lewis says, imagination, faith, then action. Right? What we're talking about here is imagining the thing. You got to get quiet enough to see it. And then you have to get quiet enough to know, ah, that's the path. It was always standing right there in front of me. That's been my personal experience. My often my greatest breakthroughs have come from me not putting more in and me waiting more for more to accurately to come out. Because other ideas can distract me so fast. Somebody else I think is smarter than me, has a better plan, has more ideas, has more experience. And frankly, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I think the answers are within so often when it comes to imagination, especially.
Yeah. Michael, thank you for that perspective. Daniel put in the chat, a wise monk once said, the mass men's problems stem from his inability to sit alone in a room by himself. So, Daniel, thank you for that. I appreciate that.
You're
Go ahead,
welcome.
Luis.
No, I like that because absolutely, but it's discipline. It comes down to discipline. It's uncomfortable to sit down by yourself or shut the freaking everything off. And um, it's the willpower. At the end, that's what it is, a mental faculty, the willpower. Do we have the will to sit down and stare at something? I mean, there are ways to get ourselves there. And I'm guilty. I don't stop and to think for a whole hour, but I do it 10, 15 minutes a day at least. And it's very difficult in the beginning, extremely difficult in the beginning. There's so much stimulation, and we are used to that stimulation nowadays. The phone, the screens, the kids, the family. And this is the other part though, when we finally sit down, I feel like I should be doing something productive,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That thing like, oh, I'm wasting time, but it is part of creating the perfect routine, the perfect day, or the ideal day, the ideal routine, and become a master of our lives. And that's all I wanted to say. Just dig into the discipline, into a self-discipline, and make it a plan. The first week, I'm gonna sit down and do nothing but stare at the freaking wall for 5 minutes until I can sit down, and then I'm gonna start thinking. And you know the other thing though, ask, ask the higher power for answers, and they're gonna come to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Whatever you want to call that higher power. Open your mind to let it come in. Right. And I think that's probably the biggest thing I've taken out of what Michael just said. Yeah, we can put stuff in, put stuff in, put stuff in, but sometimes we just have to shut everything else out and open the mind to receive the messages that are supposed to come to us. Because we can't take action on those messages unless we hear them. Right. And of course, once we hear them, we got to listen to them. And we talk about that in this chapter as well. Go ahead, Leroy.
Yeah, I like that perspective, Michael. And I I do a lot. Just sit in silence. And but I know my mind still keeps going. But uh but that is actually how uh, my mind was changed to this perception was by listening to a lot of recordings where I started out as a local truck driver. And when I went over the road, that's when I had more time to listen, and that's when it happened. And so it's a good thing. But I know for a long time, it's, you know, I still argue or like, said, thought things that were very defensive or, negative, but it took some time, but I can say it has dramatically changed uh in the last year. And so yeah, it's it's nice to listen, but I have felt that at times like, okay, I'm just taking way too much in. I'm not really, you know, it's time to rest my mind. And so, yeah, I agree. We have to rest our mind
Yeah.
every now and then.
Yeah. Thanks, Leroy.
So,
Appreciate it.
thanks
Ro-
everyone.
Rob.
No, I just really appreciate everyone's comments on this because, here recently in my life, last few years, I when I do drive, I'm listening to podcasts or just educational things that fuel my mind rather than same old AC/DC Black and Black song that I've listened to probably 100 times throughout my life. That does nothing for me. I like it, but it's just not doing nothing for my mind. And here recently, I have found myself to where I'll listen to something and then I'll just shut what I listen to, and it's finished. I shut it off, and then I'm just quiet. Like I'm just driving and pondering it, and I'm not listening to music. There's nothing. I'll be in the middle of nowhere, and sometimes I'm thinking, is something wrong with me? Should I be listening to music right now? Because I'm like completely content right now, just being quiet and with myself. Is that a bad thing? Am I isolating? Do I got a problem internally? But no, it's good to hear that, that's actually a healthy thing, just to sit there in silence, be at peace. If it's a spiritual piece, if it's a mental, whatever that piece is, but so be it. But yeah, it's good to hear from this group of men that that's a good thing.
Yeah, I love that. And I love Black is Black as well. AC/DC, my power too. That's where I get my motivation if I'm going for a run. Uh, thanks for sharing that, Rob. And, something that just came to mind too, just listening to all of the comments is, it's one thing to listen to a podcast or to an interview or to read a book. It's another thing to say, and I try to do this every time I listen. What did I get out of that podcast, and how can I implement it? And by asking that question, it causes me to pick just one thing. It was a 45-minute freaking podcast, but just pick one thing. What did you get out of it, and how can I implement it? And and sometimes I have a struggle with that. And I'm grateful for AI because I can take that question that I've got in my mind and offload it to AI to give me some different perspective. And then I always look to see, because I am a coach and because I do want to impact the lives of others, I look for ways that I can share what I just heard that might help somebody else achieve what they want to achieve. Right? So, thought, you got it. All right, there's that dog. Love that dog, Michael. All right, Phil, go for it.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. Thank you, everybody. Really enjoying how we're going with this conversation today. And yeah, I perhaps I always thought myself too as like a non-diagnosed ADHD kind of guy. My thoughts could be just rambling, and then you start to look at this philosophy, and you really start to grow your self-confidence in we do have the answers to what we're seeking. It's all inside of us. It's already there. And every one of us has those answers that we're looking for. Sometimes the thinking can get in our way. The thinking takes us in the wrong path. And I love how Napoleon Hill was influenced by Robert Collier's Secret of the Ages, where it was like the thoughts will become our reality. So there's a special chapter on thoughts are things, and it can be measured by scientists who can measure the energy of those thoughts. And imagination being, as Einstein called, one of the most powerful uh, areas of focus, energy, and concentration that can be. And we were talking earlier about leaders. Leaders have imagination, they see clearly. Leaders who are effective, now, leaders can lead the wrong way, leaders can read the way that it serves people. The leaders can take you in either directions, the law of opposites. Yet, if we're guided by where we want to be, we want to serve humanity, we want to use the good that we have inside of us to share, we have that ability. And then I was just, calling to Neville Goddard is, who is your imagination? It's like the concept of, you ever think of, if all thoughts are energy, the thoughts that I have, who is the thinker behind that thought? But then you took it two more levels. Who's the thinker behind the thinker of that thought? How many layers can we go down, right? Without going down too far. Um, but simply, I think imagination being that picture, it's that screen of our mind, and in our conscious mind, quiet this thing down. Meditation works for me. Being on the road, I love being on the road. I have great ideas when I'm driving, windshield time in front of me, and I'll go out to a country road and um, yeah, just quieting my mind, and we've got everything. How clear is it? How can I make it more clear if it's not clear enough that I can talk to it, a child? And I love how Neville talks about reverence. Reverence is that you are the I am that I am. You are consciousness. And that comes into picturing, imagining the feeling, imagining my goal already achieved. Imagination is so powerful, and we all have that. And that's why I really love imagination, is that this image nation that just floods us with what we want it to be, and do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
So, yeah. Thanks, Phil. And I like the way you just ended that. Do it. Because where my mind was going is if we spend too much time thinking, imagining, and no time acting, then all of that thought process and imagination is wasted because we didn't put it into action. Right. So I think there's two ends to the spectrum here. Yes, we're learning other people's stuff. Michael put in the comments, we're putting in other people's stuff. It leads to the imposter syndrome. And I agree that if all we do is listen to other people's stuff because we believe they have all the answers, that could be a problem because we have to find the answers that are suitable for ourselves. But I think it also gives us an opportunity to learn from other people's experience, right? So yeah, it may be their stuff and it may be their reaction or response to an experience, but we can learn from those experiences only if we listen to them and say, gee, how would I have handled that situation? Right? Zach, go ahead. Your hands up, brother.
Yeah, I also want to say I appreciate this conversation. It's been wonderful. Thank you all for your time and energy. I wanted to touch on something I heard Rob mention. He had said something about isolation. And, I feel like I've heard it many times throughout this conversation, and it kind of boils down to balance, um, and moderation and just, anybody's own personal experience. There's a really fine line between isolation and solitude. Isolation can be debilitating. It can be harmful. It can hurt you. Solitude can be a space where you're taking inventory, you're bettering your understanding of yourself and your intentions. Now, from an outside perspective, those things can look identical. Who can differentiate those things from an outside perspective? But internally, that's where you're standing, and you have to find that balance and know where you're at. So I appreciate that, Rob, and what you had said as far as uh, is this isolation? I'm comfortable in my head, like I don't need anybody else, or is this solitude? And you were like, hey, I feel good. So I think of like, I often ask myself, is this nurturing me or is this depleting me? And it sounds like that was nurturing you, man. Like you were in your thoughts and you're like, this is good. This is a wonderful experience. And so, yeah, again, thank you all. Appreciate your time and energy.
Right.
And that's just kind
Thanks.
of what I got to say.
Thanks, Zach. I saw Michael's hand go up and then I saw it go down. You good, Michael? You got something to
Well, I didn't want to pull too far on this thread, but
add?
but I love what Zach just said, and I guys, I hate the concept of fake it till you make it. I love be it till you are it. Um,
I love it.
I don't like the term balance for me personally. I always like the term harmony because I think it's about music, right? If your life is an orchestra, there's times when it needs to be still so that you can have times where it's intense, right? There's a reason, really great sex is great sex. It goes up, it goes down, like there's all sorts of pace to it, right? It's not it's not one note the whole time, or else you're not doing it right. Just a lesson, guys.
Yeah, okay.
But like I think we have to find our harmony, right? If you require a lot of, as Zach beautifully put it, solitude, not isolation, solitude, then that's you, right? If you prefer a day that's 95% get shit done versus 5% think, or if you're more on the Tim Ferriss side where he's like 95% of my day is sitting there pondering my navel so that I can figure out what the biggest domino is to make me the next $10 million, that's what he does, right? Like, I think you find your harmony. It's about, do you love it, right? At the end of the day, does it work for you? And and one of the things I wanted to mention, guys, is that when you're in business as long as I've been in business, and I have some really good friends, and one of them said to me once, he said, Michael, everything's been done. You were never going to reinvent the wheel. You ain't that smart, right? Everything's been done. So it's about finding the model that works for you. And I think when we're building something, guys, it's find the person. We talk about mentorship. So very similar. Find the person whose life that you're like, that would be something I would model. If I could be like that, like if I could do what Lewis is doing, like Lewis teaches this every day in his practice, model this kick, model this punch, right? Like this is how to do it. Find the model that you love. And I would encourage each and every one of us, when you find the model that you love, double down on the model, not the tactics, because the tactics, they fucking change all the time. Frank was just talking about AI. AI will continue to disrupt every industry, every person it touches for decades to come. So the tactics will have to change, but the model can still apply. Humans still do business with humans. And so the tactics can shift, but the modeling should stay the same. So when you find the person who you love, or the people, the one or two or three people whose business you love, whose concepts you love, or anything like that, just stay so focused on them. I think we tend to put a lot of variety, at least I have in my life, and the variety creates disharmony because that model might not apply to the model I've been using. And I'm suddenly putting tactics into my life that work for, Joe Blow, but I've been modeling Frank Menard. And suddenly there's this complete disharmony. I'm like, why am I still freaking stuck? I'm doing all the things, but I still feel stuck. And we have to measure what the inputs are on some level to ensure that the outputs are in alignment and in harmony with what we actually want. And that's where imagination for me comes into play so much, Frank, is because you have to imagine that version of you to find the person, the people, the three or four that you can then model how that's the person, right? I want to be 99% the same way as them, right? Like for me, frankly, I don't want to be Tony Robbins. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want that. I have no interest in that level of wealth and the consequences, the benefits, the consequences, whatever it is. Don't want it. Don't want the responsibility. Don't want anything like that. I don't want to spend all that much time on an airplane. I'm not interested in that. But there's other people who have accomplished so amazing things in that space that I would model. Tony Robbins I can use as a momentary inspiration, but I will never model his business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does this make,
You
I hope
know,
that makes sense.
yeah, Michael, you've used the word um, alignment several times in what you just shared with us.
Hmm.
And, I think we can look to external sources for creative imagination, or
Spark.
yeah, a spark. I mean, there's two different types of imagination. There's synthetic imagination, there's creative imagination. And when I think about all of the discussion that we've had today about thinking and looking internally, we always have to ask ourselves the question, does this align with who I want to be? And Michael just said very clearly, he doesn't want to be Tony Robbins. He doesn't want that level of, okay, so he may go to him for a spark of inspiration, but he's not going to model him because it doesn't align with who he wants to be, right? And so if we think about imagination in the two terms, synthetic, ask yourself questions in your work every single day. A great way to use synthetic imagination is simply by asking, how can I do this differently? How can I do this better? It's already been done, Michael. It's already been done, but can we do it in a different way and get a better response from it? That's where the phrase creating a better mousetrap came from. We already had mousetraps, but could we get them better? So we go from the one that's on a spring that snaps and smashes the poor mouse to the one that catches them, into a little box on the side of your house, so we can dispose of them a little bit more discreetly, right? And I still remember the mousetrap snapping on the mouse's neck in a house that I lived in West Virginia. They were coming up through a hole in the floor. There was no basement, and it was like boom, boom, boom. Every time I went back to bed, there was another one. I had to go clean the mousetrap. So that's synthetic. How could we do this better? Creative imagination is that spark that comes to you. It's not been done before. It's the Wright brothers thinking about how can we fly. It's Edison, how can I create light that's going to last and make life better? That's creative imagination. Well, in fact, Edison's example is he solved it through synthetic imagination because he responded to how coal was being made by burning wood, suffocating it, taking out all the oxygen so it wouldn't burn itself. And he was able to apply that to the light bulb because the filament was burning out too quickly. He knew how to make the electricity turn on a light. He just couldn't get it to last until he was able to pick out what was already done in the past in a different situation ever since fire was found and put it into that modern day invention that he was trying to bring to the world. So realize that there's two different things. Be open to both of them. Somebody's probably already done it. Can you do it and do it better? Or nobody's done this. Can it be done? The Edison example I was thinking about was his dictaphone. No, I'm sorry, the record player. Uh, it had never been done before. Recorded voice had never been done before. He imagined it and what it was going to look like, and he created it, and it worked the first time. Right? So it's those types of lessons we can go back on and say, okay, how can I use my synthetic and creative imagination each and every day? Go ahead, Leroy. You've been patiently waiting.
Yeah, first, back to the solitude or, uh, being alone. Uh, Often when people ask me what I do, and I say I'm over the road trucker, and then, well, how often are you at home? Oh, maybe about every 2 weeks. And there's, oh, I could never do that. That's their uh, the first thing they say is, well, why is that? And I've learned to live with it. And actually, for me, we've got cell phones today. We can talk whenever we want to. And I always say, I think I saved my marriage through that because I could talk with my wife without being there in her hair all the time. And I think that was our problem. I was just, we weren't getting anywhere. And so, but back to what Michael said, the model, I've realized too is that if I try to be somebody else, then I'm nobody. I mean, you can't, you have to be yourself. You have to find your own model. It's good to listen to others. And I get, you get a lot of good information, but yeah, you still have to be who you are, who you were created to be. And that's the power where I found is, I don't have to try to perform for anybody. I just gotta be myself.
Exactly.
So that's
Exactly.
what I want to share.
Spot on, Leroy. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, that's a great insight there. Be yourself because everyone else is taken, right? And was thinking of the point where, where we think in pictures anyway. Every image, then we put words to those, and the words are important that we use. Uh, it's coming down to the idea that, like Bob Crouch, for example, he said, I don't own this information. Napoleon Hill doesn't own the information. Andrew Carnegie didn't own it. It's there. It's in the ethos. It's in the energy that's already around here. We have a creator that had that for us, and I think it all revolves on who are we being? Why are we here? Tying into our purpose, that burning desire we've got, and imagination is simply putting those screens together, and in our mind, seeing that image of how it works. Like I say to the group of people that I would working with, I say, if you had just dropped into your seat right now and everything you did in your professional work and career, you know what you're doing because you're doing it for 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. But if you just dropped in your chain and you never had that experience before, what model would you follow when you're serving people? Would you all of a sudden come up with a model that you're used to doing for 20 years? Or would your model be a little bit different? How do we do synthetic imagination? How do we build that better way to serve people that doesn't have all the encumbrances, those rules or regulations or whatever? How do we do it in such a way that we have a benefit and an outcome, yet it's done differently? And that can be talked for the health care, it can be talked for government, it can be talked for uh, relationships, it can be talked to like, every area of our life, all the areas of life can be used when we use this imagination and the models that are there. We have that power to do it. And why are we here? Who are we being? And take what works for us and leave the rest. And then without judgment, just do what you do and welcome the diversity of whatever people are doing too. So that's all I wanted to add to that.
Yeah, Phil, thank you for that. And I just want to let everyone know. So if you go to page 114 in the book, the actual book that we're reading, um, Ways to Stimulate Creative Vision, there are a list of questions on page 114, 115 that we should look at in regard to our own personal occupations, our professions. What are we doing? And ask questions such as, how can I help make this different? How can I save money? Reflective questions that causes your imagination to think of different ways to do it, right? Rob, go ahead. You got your hand up, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I just want to say again, just this has been a great session, and I'm taking a lot away. One of the things that I've heard throughout this session, you kind of mentioned, Phil, take what works and leave what doesn't. What works for me is affirmations and words mean something to me. So in my daily journaling, I'll write down something like I'm determined, I'm intentional, I'm disciplined, I'm committed, I'm resilient. But I've heard some words today that equal that same strength, but in a different way that I think we don't always talk about, but we're talking about it here. And I wrote them down, and I heard them throughout this session. I heard balance, I heard harmony, I heard solitude, I heard alignment. And those things there equal strength too. I think being able to be in that state in those four states and knowing how to get there, I think it's strength too. So I'm taking these words away and I'm going to add them to my daily journals and keep on rolling with it. So thank you.
There you go. Thank you, Rob. And that just about wraps it up for us today. One of the things, so the last thing I had from my notes was to read widely. So take time every day to read something, even if it's just 5 pages. Take some time to read it, but then contemplate on it. Think about what you read. Write down the words, just like Rob was just doing through this session today. Writing down the words that stuck out, and then reflect on them. Think deeply, right? That's what we're saying. Think deeply about what we listen to in these sessions. This mastermind is a powerful way for us to all become better, do better, and be better. You know, collaborate with strong minds. We're committed. Each and every week, we have anywhere from 15 to 17 people in this room committed weekly to collaborate. We collaborate when we walk away from this session and ask the question, what did I hear? How can I use it? Capture those ideas, write them down, the notes that you're taking. I also recommend that you go back through the chapter. Each one of these chapters are really short, maybe 8 to 10 pages at best. Go back and reread it with your notes that you took from the conversation that we had and see what becomes evident to you. All right. So I got 2 minutes left. Anyone have any comments, final words? So maybe someone who hasn't spoken today. Eddie, good to see you this week, my friend.
To be seen.
Always good to be seen. Better than the alternatives. And Mr. Kelly is trying to come in the room. We got 1 minute left. Let's let Mr. Kelly come in and then we'll say you're done.
Well, we changed time. We changed time, and they didn't. So
Oh, that's why. Ah,
And up here in BC, we're not going back, Lewis. So it'll be really bizarre for us for a
that's
while.
going to be strange, isn't it?
oh,
Yeah.
you're 3 hours ahead of me now, sir.
Yeah,
Yeah.
indefinitely.
All right. All right. Paul Kelly, we had a time change in America. You missed it. Paul, we we let you come in to say so we could say goodbye.
That's very nice. That's okay. My clock doesn't change to the end of the month.
Yeah, yeah, and we changed ours. We went an hour ahead. So be
Okay, so
sure
3 o'clock.
be
That's right. My
sure to,
apologies. Okay.
no problem, Paul. Be sure to watch the replays. Great discussion here today, and I'll wrap that up with that. Guys, thank you so much for showing up. Thank you so much for participating. And next week we're talking about learning from adversity. Brad, do you still want to lead that? Because a couple of weeks ago you said you wanted to do that one.
Yeah, I'm going to help out with it, but we have a special guest coming on
We
too,
do.
David
Excellent.
Meltzer's. Yeah,
Oh,
David Meltzer's going to join us. So,
you ruined it. I was going to tell you not to tell everybody.
oh, sorry. Well, the cat's out of the bag now. It's more encouragement to come. He's an awesome guy. So,
All right, guys. All right. Have a great rest of your week, guys. Enjoy, and I'll see you all here next Tuesday. All right. Change your clock,
Thank you,
Paul.
everyone.
Talk to you later, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Bye,
great
everyone.
day.